Today's tutorial comes from the map making section of the creative portion of the Little Wargame official Discord, in which a user by the name of Horatio asked, how do I remove a modifier from a unit that already has a modifier? In essence, how does kill modifier work? We're going to go ahead and load up this completely blank map. As you can see by the fact that I have clicked data and asked if I want to create a new experience, that's indicating that nothing has been done to it before, to go ahead and go about creating this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we want to make a copy of the Raider, because the idea that we're going to be making is called Shadow, or Stealth. The idea is that the unit is going to stealth, it's going to go invisible, and then it's going to have another ability called Unstealth, or a move, or something of that nature, which will remove the stealth condition and allow it to move again. The basic premise will be as follows. When the Raider is stealth, it cannot move or attack. When the Raider is not stealth, it can move and attack. So we're going to go ahead and call this a Shade, and we're going to go ahead and call it Shade. What this unit actually does doesn't quite matter to us. Again, we're just following good design precepts over here for making mods by making sure that we have a new copy of the unit. That way we don't run afoul of anything that already exists inside of the editor. We're going to go down to commands, and we're going to remove Flash and Shroud so that we actually have our own Shade unit over here. And there, we're going to have one of them as such. Now we're going to go over to abilities. In abilities, the thing I like to copy, and I always mention copying, is Heal. Heal is an excellent starting ability. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the Stealth ability. Stealth, Stealth. We're going to scroll down to the bottom and put a period before Stealth so that it goes up to the top of the list. And here's what we want to do to modify it. We want it to be a type universal or ability with hotkey of Q. It's going to not target a unit. Instead, it's going to target nothing. It's going to affect itself instantly. It's going to exist at the far left position, so we want it to be at position 0, 1. So it'll be all the way in the bottom left portion of the command card of the Raider, actually now a Shade. Excellent. So now that we're going to do that, we're going to go down here, we're going to get rid of a couple of things. First off, this description is wholly inaccurate. We're just going to say Stealth the Shade. We're going to remove the target requirements because this is an instant ability. It does not require the target to be a unit. Then we're going to go to mana cost and set that effect to 0. We're going to get rid of the launch sound of heal, and we're just going to make it none for pain. Yeah, I think none for now, because I don't want to hear it. We don't want it to deal negative 150 damage because we don't want the unit to heal itself. All we want it to do, in fact, is the following. We want the unit to cast the ability, and when it casts the ability, it has the following effect. We'll even remove these aspects so that it can cast itself again. And we want it to go down to Modifiers Self. Look at Modifier Self. The tooltip says, the modifier this ability applies to the caster. Put multiple modifiers if you have a multiple level ability. Well, we only want one. And we want this modifier to affect the unit itself. But we have to go over and copy an existing modifier in order to get the effect that we want. So again, for our stealth ability, we're going to copy from invisibility buff. And we're just going to call it stealth modifier. Stealth modifier. And we're going to go over here and we're going to use camel case to call it the stealth modifier. Then once we create it, of course, we're going to go down here to the bottom, add a period in front of it so that it goes up to the front. We're going to get rid of the description because it's inaccurate. And we're just going to say, Shade becomes invisible but can't move or attack. And we're going to give it a duration of 0. We want this effect to last as long as humanly possible. That way you can see whether or not we can remove this set ability. So is invisible is going to go to 1. That's going to make our unit invisible. We don't want its damage to be affected. What we actually want is movement speed to add a negative 4. That's going to subtract 4 from its current movement speed, so it won't be able to move. And additionally, we may want to give it an extremely long weapon cooldown as a way of masking whether or not it can actually attack. Because removing the attack ability and then adding it back in is a little more difficult than just making it have a weapon cooldown of 99 seconds between every single attack. It's not perfect, but we are using this to exemplify what we can do with kill modifiers. Therefore, the exact particularities of how weapon cooldown works and whether or not this unit does or does not attack is not actually irrelevant. We want to make sure there's only a max stack of 1, so this unit can't become super invisible or super lose its movement speed or have even higher weapon cooldown. And we don't want it to have a modifier of any sort, nor do we want it to change anything else here. And we just go and we see that stealth modifier, okay. Stealth modifier has a duration of 0. That is fine. Now we're going to go to modifiers. We're going to want to create a second modifier. This is going to be the unstealth modifier. What we mean is we want this stealth modifier to activate whenever our unit presses. We'll go back and show that. We want this stealth modifier to exist whenever the Shade unit casts stealth. So the modifier to self is going to be stealth modifier. And as always, we are going to go into settings. We're going to create this as kill modifier tutorial description. We're just going to say shade gets a stealth and unstealth ability to highlight killing modifiers. We're going to leave it unlocked, and we're going to put a computer as an enemy, and then we're going to close everything else. Now, the thing we are also going to do is something that you should always do whenever you're making mods of this type, is that we are going to save or upload the map first. That way, if we find out that the unit has an ability that doesn't work the way that we want, and it forces us to reload the game, we nevertheless keep some of, if not most of, our progress. The final thing we have to do before we test, however, is give our shade the stealth ability. There we go. The shade now has the stealth ability. We're going to move the shade over to the center of the map. We're going to upload the map. Map name is invalid. Okay, so the map name is probably too long. So we're just going to call this kill mod tutorial. Kill mod tutorial, X, save, or upload. In this case, I'm choosing to upload. Excellent. Now, what we're hoping for is that when we go into this and we test, we're going to be able to go grab our shade, and when our shade presses Q, it's going to turn him invisible. Now, notice, he has this modifier right here, stealth modifier. Shade becomes invisible but can't move or attack. His damage has been increased in once every 99.01 seconds, and as you can see, he cannot move in any way, but he does remain invisible, so that part seems to be working just fine. Now we're going to get on to the next part of this, which is as follows. We're going to go back into data. We're going to bring the little guy over here so we can see what we're interacting with. Excellent. And we want to create another modifier. This modifier is going to be a copy of stealth modifier, but it's going to be unstealth modifier, or visible modifier. We'll just call it unstealth modifier for now. So unstealth modifier, unstealth modifier, create. And here's what we want unstealth modifier to do after, of course, we give it a period. We're going to remove all of this effect that it has of making things as invisible and movement speed and weapon cooldown. We don't care about any of that. And we don't want its duration to be 0. We just want its duration to be 1.05 seconds. 1 second, because that's how long it takes for things to check. And then 0.05, because that's the tick rate of the game. So that after 1 second, this should activate, then deny the existing ability. But how do we make it kill the modifier? That's what we're here for. Well, you can scroll all the way to the bottom where it says kill modifiers. Here you can put modifiers that will be removed when this modifier gets applied. So we're going to go add, and we're going to add the stealth modifier. Now we have to go back to abilities, because we have an ability for our raider, actually called a shade, to use their stealth ability, but we haven't given them an ability that allows them to activate the modifier for unstealth. So we're going to create a new modifier. It's going to be a copy of stealth. And this is, of course, just going to be called this is called stealth, so of course this is just going to be called unstealth. We have the unstealth modifier, so it only makes sense that we have the unstealth ability. This is very similar, by the way. If you want to make something that is akin to burrow or unburrow from different games, you can do the same thing here. Follows the same precept. We're going to change the hotkey to W. We don't want stealth and unstealth to be on the same hotkey, and we also don't want them to be in the same XY coordinate position of the command card of our shade. So we're going to move this over to interface position of X from 0 to 1. We're going to go down, and we're going to change the description because we're not stealthing the shade. We are unstealthing. Unstealth the shade. That is not a word, but it explains exactly what we're doing. Now we're going to go down here, and we're going to change nothing except the stealth modifier. The modifier itself is going to be unstealth modifier. So here's what we're hoping for. When we activate the stealth modifier, it turns on this endlessly lasting ability that keeps our unit invisible, but has no movement speed and greatly increased weapon cooldown. So it's not actually capable of attacking very well, or at all, hopefully. Then we go down here to the unstealth modifier. So we want the ability of unstealth to turn on the unstealth modifier. The unstealth modifier is going to go ahead and after 1.05 seconds, it's going to activate, take effect, and then kill itself because it only lasts 1.05 seconds. It's not a channeled ability, and it will kill this stealth modifier ability. So we now have unstealth, but we have to make sure that the modifier self ability that it has is unstealth modifier. Then we have to go over to the units for the shade and run all the way down here. For stealth, we're going to get rid of, we're going to add underneath stealth, unstealth. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of the spawn modifiers and the kill flash abilities that are necessary for the raider, not necessary for the shade. So we're going to X out of this and we're going to upload. If everything goes well, the raider, now a shade, will have two abilities. Stealth, which will transform it into an invisible unit that is incapable of moving and has an extremely long attack delay. And it will have the unstealth ability, which will, after 1.05 seconds, activate and take care of the initial stealth modifier. Then it will get rid of itself. So we're going to go ahead and hit test. Ooh, and we are not going to test it right away. We didn't do the first thing that you were supposed to do when you were in the process of testing these new abilities. We have to go ahead and upload. Now that we've uploaded, so that we keep some of the data, if not most of the data, in the event that we are unsuccessful, we look over here, we have two abilities, Stealth and Unstealth. So Stealth, we already know about. Stealth seems to work the way that it does. And if we hadn't added in any extra abilities, because this is a duration 0 effect, it would last forever. Our shade would never, ever, 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 ever be able to move. But our hope is that when we press W, it will get rid of the Stealth modifier effect, and then we will be able to go ahead and move and do everything again. So we press W, and look at that. Q. We cannot move. Notice this ability right here. After 0.05 seconds of pressing W, we become able to move and attack again. We are visible, but that's perfectly fine. And we have a little attack animation and effect as well. So there you go. This is an excellent example of how you can create a modifier to self, and then you can remove the modifier to self. But it's worth mentioning, in fact, that when you kill a modifier, you only kill one instance of said modifier. So for the final part of this, I will show you something that is not strictly necessary, and it doesn't apply in this context, but you will understand its importance very, very soon. We're going to go over here, we're going to move the shade, as he is now, over to the side, and we're going to go to modifiers. We're going to go to stealth modifier. Its duration is 0, which means it lasts forever, but its max stack is only of 1, which means there can only be one instance of the modifier. So even if we press stealth 15 times, if it already is under the effect of stealth modifier, it can't be under it even more so. We're going to change this max stack to 2, and you'll see exactly what impact this is going to have. We're going to upload, again, following our normal rules, and then when we, yep, come on. Come on. Most excellent. Now we're going to test. So we're going to do two things. We're going to go over here and we're going to see that if we press Q to stealth and then W to unstealth, it all works. It seems to do exactly what it did before. Q, we can't move. W, now we kill that modifier, we can't. But because our max stack is 2, we can't just have one mode of stealth. We can have a second mode of stealth, as indicated by the fact that we are now under the effects of not one, but 2 stealth modifiers. Now we press W. When we press W, the W unstealths the shade, killing one instance of the modifier, but notice that we can still not move. So again, there are 2 modifiers here. Now, 1, 2 for the stealth modifier. When we press W to unstealth, it kills one of the modifiers. When we press W again, it kills the second one, and we can move again. So we're going to go ahead and change the max stack of the stealth modifier back up to 1, because that's exactly what we want the player to do. However, it's worth noting that you can, in fact, affect only one. You can only kill one instance of a modifier at a time. So there's only a couple of things left here to do, and that is as follows. I think we're going to give our player a house, so they don't immediately lose the game, and then we're going to give the opponent, player a house, something for the player to kill, while they go ahead and interact with everything. And I think we'll surround everything with cacti this time. And again, this, as with most editor tutorials, is very bare bones. It only does what it is supposed to do, and then it gets the point done, and it is quickly over. So you can take this and apply it in any number of ways. But for now, I hope you understand exactly what the full implications are. Some other things that you can do with the fact that you can kill and modify modifiers in this way. You can have units be under the effect of multiple modifiers, and then have debuffs only remove or buff moves that remove a modifier, such as a poison stat, only get rid of one instance of it. You can alternatively use this to create multiple layers of debuffs. You can also use it as a form of resource or inventory collection, which is something that I did in my brief attempt at making the mod of Skella Miner. But all of that has been done and said, and now that we've created a player 2 and determined that the player 1 player is in fact the player with the raider, they have a way that they can go ahead and practice killing a modifier. Let me check one more time to make sure that this is in fact an unlocked map, and it is. So once we upload one final time, that'll be the end of this editor tutorial, and you can go forward in Little Wargame Editor with confidence and ease, knowing that you can not only make modifiers, but you can kill them if necessary.